Empathy, a thing that we need as a society so we take care of one another and we relate to others who are in the most vulnerable situations. As an example of this sort of needed empathy, we would be empathizing with, say, a homeless person who seems to be mentally ill or perhaps addicted to drugs. We would want to be empathetic to their position and advocate that the state appropriates land, allocates money, and helps those people. That's an empathy with an ending. And empathy also for your neighbor who comes home at 5 o'clock every afternoon and leaves at 5 o'clock every morning, works a 12-hour shift or 10-hour shift or 11-hour shift. He's tired. Maybe be empathetic and pick up the garbage in the front of his yard for him. That's empathy with a result, an ending. Empathy also goes into bigger things that we don't see, bigger things or that we do see, but perhaps we don't interact with on a personal level. This would be immigration. This would be the other. This would be someone coming from a South American country through the southern border illegally, whether encouraged by big agra and the large meat packing industry is irrelevant. They do come in here illegally, but they are seeking a better life in a country that was founded by immigrants. Now, you can say illegal immigrants compared to the immigrants that came over in Ellis Island. There was no really such thing as an illegal immigrant back then. And now, because we've created laws, and I'm not going to go into why that is, because you probably know that. Empathy is something we deal with in our regular daily lives. When we see our fellow, a friend of ours who's a little down, we ask him what's going on, and we empathize. Hey, girlfriends or family problems or work problems. And then, like I said, there's empathy for Palestinians. There's empathy for Ukrainians. There's empathy for countries that the Syrians, Yemen, the Yemenis, the Egyptians. We can just keep going. We can have empathy for them, even though we won't interact with them in their country, or we really won't interact with the empire at the other end of the barrel. These are crucial because it also leads to intellectual honesty. When you lose your empathy about things that you don't perhaps deal with every single day or see on a personal level, you lose your intellectual capacity to reason and to be critical and to be intelligent and to actually make good decisions and think out the problem. Empathy really takes time. Empathy you are not born empathetic. You are born to grow into an adult, to become empathetic as you get older. How many 6-year-olds do you know are empathetic? How many 8-year-olds do you know are empathetic? It's very hard. Now they learn by example, and they get more and more empathetic as they get older by seeing the examples, seeing how their parents treat people, seeing how authority treats people, seeing how their friends and their siblings treat people. That starts to develop their empathy. They start to learn empathy. This generation, these most recent generations in the last 20 years, if you're 25 or so, you've grown up in front of laptop screens, computer screens, monitor computer screens, they're the same thing, telephones, I'm missing a bunch of shit. You're the screen generation. And because of hyperlinks and other things, your empathy the parts of your brain that empathy develops in are developing differently. They're developing in some cases slower. So your brain essentially needs time, and it needs to be a long period of time for you to learn empathy. But you're given so much shit at such an early age with the swiping and the linking and the clicking on that the parts of the brain that are normally would be developing empathy don't. And then you become a teenager and a young person who you probably have empathy for people that are genetically related to you, but your empathy is not far past that. You really don't care about homeless people. You really don't care about people overseas being genocided. You really don't give a shit. And throw in The video game industry, which is nothing but simulated killing of other human beings in different and new ways. Throw in every television show, cartoon, movie that you see that's R-rated, or a horror movie, or something that's even PG-13 in some cases. You're watching the wholesale simulated murder of human beings. They've done studies about this back in the 90s about violence on television. And the most recent studies are so obvious and so terrifying. It gives you an understanding of how MAGA, a generation like a Gen Z or a millennial generation, or the Zoomers or whatever that's coming, they can develop no empathy and support only rich people and influencers. Donald Trump is an influencer. That's what he is. He's just old. The Kardashians, these are the kids who grew up only wanting one thing. Ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And this has been back since the early 2000s, late 90s. You ask kids what they want to be, and they say rich. That's losing empathy. I don't want to be a doctor to help people. I don't want to be a plumber to help people because I like to build. I want to be rich. I want to have lots of money so I don't have to work, so I don't have to grind, so I'm never vulnerable. And I don't really care about anybody else other than the people that are directly related to me. How many people do you know with this aloof attitude towards societal problems? I know, I shouldn't have left it just to Gen Z and millennials. I know Gen Xers who are like this. Mostly they're upper middle class, because as we know, empathy even gets developed less with wealthy people. So they even have less empathy because they don't even have to deal with it on a personal level, and it's all just an intellectual exercise. They're not affected by homeless because they don't see the homeless in their neighborhoods. Homelessness, it affects the working classes, not the middle class. Always remember that. That's why it never gets solved. More on that later. But the empathy vacuum that has been created, and how it keeps empowering MAGA, it keeps empowering people who talk like, I don't know if you've seen that, the Holman guy, the head of, was he Homeland Security, or he's the border czar? He is a monster. He's an awful creature. He looks on the outside like he is on the inside. Ted Cruz looks on the outside like he is on the inside. All of these people don't have any empathy for others. They don't have any empathy. They're all Christians, of course, or but they have, their empathy doesn't, listening to them talk about human beings like they are trash, or like they're invaders, or that's a lack of empathy. And now MAGA, young MAGA, which is the saddest, old whites that live in rural areas, I don't have any hope for, but I had hope for young people, working class people, who could avoid the hatred and lack of empathy. But how could they? Because they spend all of their time playing video games. They are perpetually on fucking line. So they're not developing this empathy. And now you're seeing it with Elon Musk has talked about empathy and Marjorie Taylor Greene has showed a lack of empathy, and every conservative has showed a lack of empathy over the recent firings and the recent threats to Social Security and you've seen it with Donald Trump. Trump has an absolute lack of empathy for Palestinians. He doesn't give one fuck. He cares more about Russians than he does about Palestinians. I mean, he's a complete fucking joke. And he has no empathy because he was a rich kid. Donald Trump rich people simply that's why the society starts to look like this. It's not just video games and movies and fictional murders. It's rich people and their massive influence on the American experience. Because of capitalism, right? So now evangelical Christians are telling their people, don't worry about being empathetic. Let's ease off on the empathy a little bit, because you don't want to be, and they're talking about, of course, immigrants, and they're talking about LGBTQ, and they're talking about minorities. I mean, for Christ's sake, they're either they've done it or they're trying to scrub Jackie Robinson, the first black baseball player, off of the United States, is it Army website? But one of the military websites is controlled by the government. They're scrubbing Jackie Robinson. He's a historical figure, and they're getting rid of anything DEI. They want to get rid of trans soldiers, even though they're dealing with recruitment issues, but no trans soldiers. It's hate-filled bigotry, and the MAGA supporters have a lack of empathy for those people who need it most. That is why MAGA will completely obliterate the country accidentally. They think they're patriotic when in fact they're just complete and utter empathy-less people. And if anybody has any question about any of this, take a look at your biggest YouTube stars. Take a hard look at some of the most popular people on YouTube, some of the richest. They are some of the least empathetic people that you could ever run into. They are not consistent, and they are completely awful in most of their positions when it concerns anything about helping people. Even the ones on the left, they don't give a fuck. They don't do anything for anybody, and they're not empathetic. That's how it makes them not spend their money and use their followers for something good, but only to enrich themselves and sell merchandise. This is a lack of empathy that has affected everyone, because if someone is unempathetic and they're not willing to look at the world in a we need help, we need to help people, we need to do good things, then they're going to affect you in that same society because you live in that society. And now we have half of this country who has apparently lost their empathy. They've lost it for women who have been sexually assaulted and need abortions and have been raped and there's no empathy for them, no empathy for poor people and homeless. We have more homeless people on the streets than we've ever had in the history of the country. No empathy for them. Migrants, immigrants, what's the difference? An immigrant and a migrant is just, they're probably illegal. So if they have brown skin, let's stop and frisk them and scare them. And let's scare them and treat them like they are less than white people or less than whatever, and we don't have to have empathy for them. We can just let them be rounded up and flown back into their country, regardless of why they left their country. I don't have empathy for that. I don't have time for that. I'm too busy hating. I'm too busy pretending that because I haven't informed myself that the economy is in any sort of bad condition because of migrants or immigrants. Every statistical metric would show you the other way. Listening to unempathetic people in Chicago of a certain race talking about why black people haven't been taken care of, but migrants, immigrants, illegal immigrants are being given vouchers for hotel rooms and being given credit cards and EBT cards so they can actually fucking eat and actually not have to sleep on the ground. Instead of asking something for everyone, we all want it. We want to take away from one group so another group can have it. Or we'll blame one group. Instead of those people saying, we all should have this. This is all. We're stand up for the migrant, and the migrant will stand up for you. But they don't, because they don't have empathy. They're only thinking about themselves. You can see this with liberals. Liberals, their empathy, man, watching liberals justify Gaza, watching liberals justify supporting Kamala Harris because of Gaza was grotesque, fucking grotesque. But their lack of empathy was because Kamala being president was more important than making a protest against a genocide. That's a lack of empathy. So we're swimming in a lack of empathy. It's being talked about by Elon Musk. It's being talked about by the richest people in our society. It's being talked about by our evangelical right-wing religious quote-unquote leaders when they're not sexually assaulting young kids or, stealing money from their churches. This is an epidemic that's only getting worse. And this computer generation is being turned into little machines, and they're being turned into little capitalist robots that don't know anything what's going on. They love Twitter and buzzwords and catchphrases. They love to, it's all about style over substance. And all they really want to be is influencers. All they really want to be is rich. And their lack of empathy is going to significantly alter the course and direction of the planet unless something is done about it, which I don't think that's going to happen. So this will just be a continued slide in America because we have let social media and we've let anything that makes money run roughshod over our children, run roughshod over the poor, and run roughshod really over anybody with conscience and anybody who cares about anything. Thank you very much for listening and have a great day.